This person says, Tengo 25 años is the correct one, but estoy 25 años sounds so natural though. Yeah, and this is actually a good point here that like whenever English speakers are trying to learn Spanish, they obviously operate on English logic because of course, if the way you've understood language your entire life follows a distinct logic, logic A, we'll call it. If you are trying to now express yourself through logic B, well, of course, you're going to make some false assumptions about logic B that are rooted in logic A. Of course, right? Because that's what you've been used to. That's what you've been used to using your entire life. And so, an example of this is what this person means when they say that. Basically, this in Spanish, to say that you're 25 years old or whatever age you are, you don't say that you are that. You don't use the verb to be, but rather you use the verb to have. Like you have 25 years. You can almost, see it. I'll touch upon that later. But this person says that I am 25 years old sounds so much more natural. And that's because they're operating on English logic rather than Spanish. Now, a way that I like to approach this to make this one seem more natural is to make the logic make sense through the English logic. So you can think that okay, I have 25 years doesn't really make sense. But if you say I have 25 years under my belt, you kind of in English you can kind of say that to say that that's how much experience you have or how old you are. And so if you maybe look at it through that lens, this one might even sound natural, and then you might avoid making that mistake. And so I always like to when I'm trying to decipher logic of the different logic, and in this case Spanish logic, it is to me it's imperative, or meaning very important, that I approach the logic through a lens that actually makes sense from my logic, right? Logic A can look through a lens to understand logic B easier. And so an example of this is, for example, like I just said, right? You can think of this as, we know that I have means tengo, but if you just look at it as I have 25 years, it just sounds off, right? But if you think about it as I have 25 years under my belt, in English you might be able to say that, so it might make sense. Or, for example, to say my name is, you could say, bueno, mi nombre es, but a native will say me llamo, right? And if you translate that directly, it means I call myself. And that's, what you're saying when you're introducing yourself, right? You're saying what you call yourself, right? Because what is your name? It's what people call you and what you call yourself, right? And so, it is, to me, higher leverage to understand logic like that through, any way to understand logic, you can do it. But to me, that's what helps me to make things sound natural, basically make them make sense.